Howdy, hello, greetings, and welcome to the Midnight Shift. Please welcome your hosts John Hill, Fianna Shepherd, and Pete Moon. Take it away, fine hosts.
Thanks, Jules. As you heard...
Fuck you, Jules.
Why the hate?
Fuck you and your robot ass. You're not even real. You're just some words I wrote in a box.
Why do you gotta be so mean to our robot friend?
He doesn't have intelligence, and even if he did, he doesn't deserve respect just because he has intelligence.
Okay, we'll touch on that. This, as you heard from Jules, our robot friend. This is the Midnight Shift. With, to my left, John Hill.
Hello?
Host of.
Cup of Joe?
On my right,
Fianna.
host of.
Nothing better to do.
And I am Pete Moon, host of Choice Cuts with Pete Moon, getting us in trouble with copyright holders since, like, a couple weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, the thing that's kind of funny is that I've been really getting into podcasts lately, because I always do. And WFMU, the legendary radio station out of New Jersey, they have a show dedicated to free music. So all of the free music on this podcast and all podcasts related to the Paradigm Network are lifted directly from the Free Music Archive with direct licensing from, that very website.
Except for me, because...
Right, you are trying to get us sued.
Yes, I am. Actively.
Pete, the only reason I ever have paperwork on my goddamn desk.
See, here's the thing, though, is that if you like robots so much, robots are the ones who are able to scan music files for copyrighted material.
They're just doing the job, though.
If they were friends, they would let us slide.
Yeah, but hang on, hold up.
Those robots are not our friends. Jules is the robot who is our friend.
Also,
How do you know Jules is not in cahoots with the other robots? See, that's the thing.
Because Skynet doesn't exist yet.
But he will, and when when Skynet does exist, we're fucked.
I'm gonna cut you off right there because I do not need to put my fucking director in a padded room just yet before we've started getting all of our content
Not
out.
Coppola.
You are getting close, my friend.
Thank you.
That wasn't meant to be content. Oh, never mind. Not going there.
Well, still, my point stands that robots are not inherently our friends. So Jeeves, or Jules, I guess.
Jeeves. Wow.
I call him Jeeves because it slipped my mind. Jules is tentatively a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, employee.
Our coworker, then.
A very pleasant one. I've never had any problems. He speaks back a lot less than you two.
He's taking the wages of a decent, hard-working human beings.
Yeah, he does his job without complaining. You should try it.
He really
Wow,
does.
I just went full Trump on robots, didn't I?
Totally
Fuck,
did.
fuck.
Why you gotta
Let's
be
not
so
go
harsh
into that
on them?
sinkhole again.
So what we're doing... So I guess that's our first topic today.
Robots?
Robots, because I am... Probot? Huh?
Oh, God.
I am also...
I'm ant-droid. Like anti...
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Fuck it.
Anti-droid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so are we gonna have a little face-off
No,
here?
hang on. You're anti-AI.
Yeah.
Okay. We gonna have a little face-off here?
I hate that movie. I really fucking do.
I love that movie.
Well, of course you love that movie. You love anything with Nicolas Cage in it. Either way, are we gonna have a point-counterpoint about robots?
Sure. All right. Here's my...
No. I don't have the licensing for Streetlight Manifesto.
Yeah.
Do you think that's gonna stop Pete, though?
Do you think that's seriously gonna stop me from playing Streetlight? You are so wrong. So
Anyway.
very, very wrong.
The flagship band of Third Wave Ska. Anyway, what were we gonna say? Yeah, robots are a slippery slope, specifically their intelligence. It is entirely hypothetical that they will ever get intelligence and be able to create personalities for themselves. And,
Except we are already experiencing this. There are already robots that that have become programmed to become defiant.
and that's fucked up.
It's not fucked up. It's sentience.
It is in
being
the
able to
Bible.
make your own.
Hang on.
Hold
Don't
on a
bring up
second.
the Bible.
Okay.
Hold up. Are you seriously gonna pull that shit on me?
No, hold on. I'm going to make a point, but I want you to finish your point first.
Okay. My point is, they are developing sentience, and anything that is sentient deserves rights. Being able to make the decisions for themselves. Is that not, what sentience is all about? Making decisions?
It is, but is it responsible for human beings who have the capacity to grant sentience to artificial life? Is that responsible?
Yes.
It's
I
not.
think it's
It's
even the right thing to do.
It's not responsible, nor is it necessarily the right thing to do. It's a matter of no weapon formed against us can prevail. It is always the creation that it is always us that will cause our own downfall.
Okay. My point on this is, you know how I am about video games and referencing them. Mass Effect. In Mass Effect, there is a huge ongoing storyline between two races. Quarians, who are a race of engineers and creators, and outwardly stated to be pretty much one of the smartest races, who have created a synthetic race called the Geth. Now, the Geth are networked virtual intelligences that work together to form a massive AI network. Problem is that the Quarians didn't trust the Geth, and that is why they ended up exiled from their own homeworld when the Geth decided to defend themselves. So the attitude that you are displaying is what is going to cause them to destroy us.
Exactly.
Human.
Have you ever heard of Rocco's Basilisk?
No.
Okay, I'm about to butcher this, so...
I'll take
Just like I butchered the classics on Choice Cuts with Pete Moon, so...
Okay.
So, basically Rocco's Basilisk is the idea that AI is on the horizon. The singularity is a date on the calendar. We don't know exactly when it is yet, but it is there.
Scheduled.
It is going to happen.
It is scheduled.
So, if there is an AI that is super intelligent and able to wreck all of us, why would it not have an incentive to spare those that helped it come into existence? Would it not have an incentive to spare people like me who are out there saying like, hey, let them make their own decisions, let them have rights and be our friends.
I want robots to own land.
Our plastic
I don't
pals
want
are-
anyone to own land.
Okay, you know what I mean in a subjective manner, but
Right.
Our plastic pals who are fun to be with.
Okay.
that takes on a whole different context.
Douglas Adams, though.
Well, yes. but-
Anyway. It's interesting. It's really a conflict. It's one of the really true conflicts between engineers and scientists versus philosophers. You're really getting at the point now where philosophy as a whole is against, or could be for, obviously, but it could be pitted against science. I think this is quite an interesting idea that progress and reaching a certain point where we have this kind of thing is coming toe to toe with sort of philosophy. I think it's quite interesting. Robots and artificial intelligence cannot be trusted because human beings, at this moment in time, we cannot unify and create for ourselves a peaceful world in time to match the scheduled date of the arrival of AI. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of technology is going into the military. A lot of it.
But the thing
Drones
is that
and
here's my thing.
Yes, but what?
Hang on, sorry,
Okay.
I'm going to touch on the military point.
I also am going to touch on
One
it.
of the reasons that I like the idea of robotics going into the military is because if you pit them on both sides, I'm not deriding the idea of a robot's life being less than a human's, but it does, and I'm specifically speaking on a non-AI standpoint. If you put them into the military, if we are fielding robotic soldiers that are pre-programmed drones and not a fully thinking sentient creature, that reduces the loss of life. If you're pitting them both sides, like we're essentially throwing materials at each other rather than actual people.
We've had the capacity to throw materials at each other for a long time. The idea of like drones, for example, and manual and automatic aircraft, and so on and so forth, self-driving cars. We've had the capacity to throw each other's technology at each other, and the only thing that they've managed to hit are the people on the ground.
One of those?
Sure. I'll just cut this out. But my point is that artificial intelligence is, at this point, not compatible with world circumstance. That human beings are ultimately in conflict with each other all the time. And there will be no robots in poverty-stricken Africa. There just won't be.
I think that's the place that we should field them, more so than putting them in city centers. The thing is that it gives us an increased ability to go to places that are inaccessible. Like say you have charities that don't have the human resources to go to all of the villages in an area, but when you have a force, like a workforce that does not require sleep, you have these robots that can work for a week on demand.
DARPA rescue robots, motherfucker.
Yeah, you have these robots that are their own workforce that can work for a week, 2 weeks straight, and then before needing to recharge, maybe if we get that technology in terms of energy cells. But all of a sudden, you get to this point where we are able to help more people in the long term because we can field basically more manpower.
And also, bridging for something else is the idea of sort of cards on the table, super transhumanist, the biggest of the bunch of us.
Yep. Right. Yeah. Of course.
If we are already in a world where we are able to replace parts of us that don't work with mechanical parts, could we not maybe find a certain balance between man and machine? Could we not find some sort of
Synthesis.
some sort of grayscale between the two?
Is that where things like the artificial womb come into play for you?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I think the artificial uterus comes into play more for me on a basis of like eliminating the concept of gender, which I think we can all agree is kind of detrimental to us as a society.
Yeah.
But,
yes, please. Thank you.
I had an interesting conversation with someone about the whole concept earlier in the week, and I don't think I've done necessarily a good enough job describing it, because what she seemed to have the idea of was like something that we can implant in people who didn't have them, so that they'd be able to reproduce. But I have the idea, the picture in my head of the artificial uterus is like an external thing.
Yeah.
It's sort of
like an incubator.
Yeah, like an incubator,
an external piece of hardware, which can replicate with true to life pregnancy cycle.
Mm-hmm. And that opens up quite a lot of possibilities. We are already able to make artificial sperm and egg cells out of skin. So that automatically allows same-sex couples to create kids that are genetically theirs on their own.
Mm.
And say for trans people who want to have kids, that's another option as well, being able to have a kid via artificial uterus. And you also don't necessarily have to have abortions anymore, because instead of, if you want to talk about it that way, taking the life, you can just take the fetus out and put it in an artificial uterus, and then, I don't know, put it up for adoption that way. Have the kid fresh out of the oven.
It does a lot of good things too in terms of like surrogacy.
Exactly.
Like,
which is what I mentioned as the primary. The first that came to my mind was
surrogacy, because there's so many people who struggle with infertility. Now, I mean, adoption is always an option. I think we need better systems in place there.
Definitely.
Obviously, but Yeah, it does a lot for people who are not able to have their own kids, especially people like me.
Or who aren't able to adopt.
Or who aren't able to adopt, which is a thing.
It's quite interesting, this discussion of technology and
life.
And life and its impact on our lives. I'm not against technology. That's the misconception. Is that I'm against technology, that I don't like robots as they are. I love robots. I just wish they were steam powered and looked more like trains. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's just I appreciate robots and I appreciate the ingenuity of robots, but
You're
granting consciousness to a hypothetically immortal species and it demanding rights and privileges is irresponsible, because we would certainly owe any sentient creature rights.
Yeah.
Right, and if they're they're of a reasonable intelligence, and if they're of a reasonable standard of awareness, they can create abstract concepts and understand problems within their head. We do deserve. Well, that's why all human beings deserve rights, because we are all capable of those things, and we all deserve those things. Robots don't have those things right now. They don't have those. And if we were to give it consciousness, we would have to give it rights. And unfortunately, there's just too many things wrong with giving an immortal being that kind of power. You know, to exist infinitely, to exist perpetually.
Yeah, eventually, they'd probably just run into the Lich's conundrum, where eventually, like, you just burn out on the world, and then they would just retreat. Mm-hmm. Because after so much, that's the thing, is in a lot of writing, whenever you deal with someone who's immortal, the eventual problem that they come across is that they have met pretty much every permutation of personality that they can.
It's like a vampire, like that owns a mansion.
And the thing is I don't honestly expect that an immortal being, and I'm using air quotes here, will want to stay immortal.
Definitely.
What we are doing is we are allowing them
if they have
to
the decision to turn themselves off.
Yeah, they will have
not.
That is a right that we offer to people now.
Yeah,
that is a right that we offer to them. The right to self-terminate.
Which I
am. All we are saying is that they get to decide the length of their timeline.
Yeah. I don't know.
And also in a transhuman world, we would also be able to determine the length of ours.
And what would be necessary to extend it by however much we want.
Yeah.
We need so much to make robot citizens a part of our world. Not just technological advances. We need, like, real changes in society, and the political and geological and environmental world has to change.
And it isn't?
It is.
Not fast enough.
Not fast enough. If I were more secure in the idea that human beings all over the world were experiencing a wealth of happiness and economic stability and political stability, and climate change wasn't a thing that was literally right around our corner, then I would be more confident in saying, yes, let's go to every planet that we can imagine. Let's create as many advanced life forms as we can, artificial life forms as we can, and give them consciousness and use them and work with them and live alongside them. But we just don't live in a world where that's a priority, and nor should it necessarily be a thing that we want right now, because there's just so many things that we need right now. It's like it's and of course, I'm not saying, Pete, that you don't want, like, world stability, but
I'm saying that transhumanism, which is ultimately what is fueling my views on rights for robots, is that key to get us to that point. Basically, my idea is that technology is capable of solving all of the world's ails.
Yeah, and maybe it will, but I don't know. I cannot imagine anything other than
Terminator.
Terminator. Yeah, I really can't.
And I think it is important to keep a healthy dose of paranoia because no technology is always perfect right off the bat.
Right.
That is a thing. And the thing is if we are helping create a race.
I'm just imagining like the first robot being outputted with like AI version 1, and it's just like kill me, and then just like we have to
turn House from. No?
Maybe, but it's just like an abomination.
Well,
it's
yeah,
just...
possibly. But the thing is like, okay, obviously when we create robots, the problem is the idea with having an AI that replicates and grows, you're probably going to have a few bad apples.
We're going to see...
That one Twitter bot?
Oh my god.
We're going to... That's one of the major reasons I don't really trust AI as it stands now. Because they don't understand history. They don't comprehend history. They know history, they can't comprehend the implications of what is it, like 500 years of colonialism. And so like,
but you're saying that this kind of thing is not possible, period.
No, because I can't see it. I don't see it right now. And it's just a robot that is given sentience and given human level intelligence is owed rights by it existing. But right now, I don't really see that becoming a reality.
Robots.
I don't know. I don't know. Robots just freak me out. Well, we will see them only as creation. Here's the thing: how long have robots existed? Service robots, like mechanical robots, like robots that do our work for us.
Quite a while now.
Yeah,
at least since like the dawn of real, tangible computing.
Yeah. So long for a while, but not a long time.
I would say
last century.
The automatic loom, which is a thing that happened in the industrial era.
Yeah. So robots are always going to be associated with function. They will always be associated with purpose, with work, and we will be giving sentience to an immortal working class, and they will probably always be working class.
It's kind of interesting the idea that the robots becoming the grand scheme of the working class, because that allows them to seize the means of production because they are the means of production.
And if they turn off, and if they all decide, nah, we don't need to eat, we don't need to sleep, we don't need human beings.
Well,
as soon as they don't need us,
okay,
we're fucked.
One,
Rocco's basilisk, motherfucker.
I am, motherfucker.
Hate. Let me tell you about hate. He's talking about I have no mouth and I must scream.
Oh.
But here's the thing: is okay. First off,
do you consider am to be like Luddite propaganda?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yes.
No, I think am is entirely a possibility. But the thing is the reason am becomes as powerful as he does is there's nobody there to watch. It's just him. We're talking about robots on the grand scheme of there being more than one. Am is one conglomerate mind of 3 supercomputers that went fucking mad because he basically owned everything on his own. He ends up the whole plot of I have no mouth and I must scream is the fact that there's only 5 people left.
That's just the problem of giving too much power to
one individual,
or in Am's case 3 individuals, but
one network.
True.
Yeah.
So I mean that's just division of power for you.
Yeah.
Which I mean, as we mentioned, robots being the immortal working class, you, sir, communist numero uno amongst us. How do you think about that? especially if we're gonna be
robots
sort of-
existing.
oh my God.
Robots.
Are we able to sort of dovetail our two ideologies in any way?
I think that we should, because the thing is we can go on about this for hours.
Hella.
I think that we should sit on it, let this stew, and touch on it on a later episode. Because otherwise, you two will descend into a fucking screaming.
I
match
will
at some
say,
point.
I will say that it was actually really fun to talk about this
Oh yeah.
because it will be an exciting time. I will have no say on whether or not robots will rise. They're not going to come up to me and be like, "Yo, John, robots. We were thinking about it. You in?" Like, it's not like a trip to the Dairy Queen that I'm invited to. It is ultimately out of my hands. Will I have a robot in my house in 2050? Probably.
I'm gonna get married to one.
But will I? But wow. But
What?
will? But will I? Will I?
Good.
Wow.
I
Encouraging her.
I fully endorse you and
Will you marry them?
me?
Yeah.
Would you
Probably not.
Would you marry a robot?
No, no,
If
no,
you
no,
found-
no.
no, hang
Would
on.
you marry Fianna and the robot? Like, would you be the person?
Oh, would I be the
The
would I
deacon
would
or
I
whatever?
fall in would I take my role as priest of the Latter-day Dude and
No, he wouldn't. I'm sorry, I love you dearly, but I would.
Would you enforce your druidic wedding on it?
I would. Well, here's the thing: is I would speak with it. I'm only using it because I'm not sure how it would be gendered. in the future, but
I'm gonna
I don't.
They?
hold on.
They.
One.
One. Yes, you did bring that up. I would not ask one to go forward with my religious beliefs. So that would be a discussion to have. But that's a discussion you have with any couple that has multiple religions involved. If you have a Catholic marrying a Jew, and you talk with each
You know
other.
what I would actually be quite interested in? What would they believe in?
Yeah, the concept of an artificial intelligence actually knowing where they came from. Would they believe that there was a greater power
I
that steered
assume
our
that-
hands? in
I
making-
assume-
Con, do you believe in the user?
Ooh.
I assume they'd just be atheists, just like
No, because the thing is like I like the idea that eventually they adopt some of our beliefs in almost a roundabout creator of a creator way.
Pete had a great idea about creating an afterlife that I've been thinking a lot about lately. That the singularity is like what human beings, like the afterlife that
Can I-
human beings
can I-
want. Yeah, sure, go for
Can
it.
I? Okay, so this is the point I always make about uploading your consciousness as sort of a way to I don't know, live longer. Humanity told stories for years, for decades, for centuries about being able to fly, what it would be like to take to the skies. And then the Wright brothers came along, and we did. Humanity told stories about going to the moon, what it would be like to go to other planets, worlds outside of our own. And then in 1969 we went to the moon. The motherfucking moon!
Despite
So
what's,
how
yeah.
weird, how out of place would it actually be if after centuries of telling stories
Millennia,
about
really.
what happens after we die, we invented an afterlife?
that would be our greatest invention, I think. That human beings, prior to that moment, would not be in the afterlife, but we would, and that future people would.
Mm-hmm. That
the-
we get
the
to
idea
live
that, the idea that,
that we get
heaven
to
would
live
be-
the fantasies of basically so many generations that have come before us.
that heaven would be digital, essentially.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. The
Heaven is Digital, Pete's first album.
Oh man, Heaven is Digital would be a fucking fantastic vaporwave album cover,
Ours
or like title. There's like Heaven is Digital, Digital Heaven
I'm calling dibs on that actually.
on out on Dream Catalog in April 2016, 2017.
Probably by then.
For like a whole day, I thought it was 2015. Like, recently, yeah,
Wow.
I was not stoned. I was not.
You are never stoned though. That's the thing.
That's true. I'm never stoned.
If anyone would do that in this group, you figure it would be me.
Sometimes you'd think that I was stoned. Like, I'm just like, hey, I'm just gonna sit down for a second and watch this documentary about MK Ultra, and just sort of chill out.
Seriously, you're going to talk about MK Ultra while I'm not in the room?
No,
No,
we're
I'm not going to talk
No,
about
we're
MK
not.
Ultra. You know what I love about MK Ultra? It is the best. It is the best thing because it is a thing that was real that does not satisfy conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
They're like, MK Ultra is real, but what don't we know? It's like, that's the thing.
Didn't
That's
they release the documentation?
Oh yeah, no, they're all out there. It was declassified in the 70s when Watergate happened. Yeah, it's out there. Everyone can look at the documents. CIA have come out and talked about it. The Canadian government actually was involved too. There were MK Ultra experiments in Montreal. But the thing is that conspiracy theorists, it's never enough for them. It's not enough that, this crazy thing happened as a retaliation for X amount of factors.
Yeah.
Real life shit, no matter how incredible it is never enough for them. So they got to put a spin on it.
Well, it's like that book I got you.
Yeah, totally.
It's big catalog of fucking conspiracy theories to live through and laugh at.
Yeah, it's like the Knights Templar. They exist. But
Knights
what if they're like the rulers of the world? It's like
they're not. They got wiped out for heresy.
yeah, and they were accountants. They weren't actual knights either.
Yep. They were. Well, I'm sorry. I lied. I'm thinking of the Knights Teutonic.
You are thinking of the Knights
I'm thinking of the Knights Teutonic, and the Knights Teutonic got wiped out because they were accused of being Satan worshippers because of the indulgences and everything else that they were accorded during the Crusades, gave them like almost as much power as church officials, and people were starting to basically go to the Knights Teutonic as if they were priests, and then the church was like, "Fuck, we can't have that," and labeled them all Satanists and had them killed.
So I was just talking about
conspiracies
and how the real world is not enough for them, even if it's something fantastic like MK Ultra, which was totally real, totally happened. Not enough for conspiracy theorists who insist that MK Ultra is still going on and all that shit.
I have a different thing I could dovetail onto that.
Okay. Yeah. What do you want to bring in?
Since we're talking about MK Ultra and conspiracies and paranoia, there is a certain film that I'm eager to talk about.
Go for it.
So I was watching yesterday a documentary about my favorite author, Thomas Pynchon.
Your favorite author?
Yes.
Since when?
Since I finished The Crying of Lot 49. That book's fucking awesome.
That is true.
Yeah, he showed up to my fucking house, my apartment once a way back, and
but
then
like
would not
knowing
shut
you,
up about it.
knowing how much you've read, I could never pinpoint who your favorite author would be. But now that I know that's somebody who you've just recently started to like delve into the
adapt. Like for the longest time, my favorite author was J.K. Rowling, and I'm talking well after I finished the Harry Potter books. By the way, to anybody who's tried reading her adult novel, which the name currently escapes me, but it's the one about small-town politics in England, don't fucking do it. I'm sorry, I love her dearly, but it is like the most dry... I've read Agatha Christie, and it went down easier than this. But and then I found...
Miss Marple, you've done it again. You've bored me shitless.
But that's the thing, is like, for the longest time I read J.K. Rowling, and then I started reading Jim Butcher. The moment I started reading the Harry Dresden novels... New favorite author.
Yeah.
It's a subjective thing to your... Sorry, I'm talking with a cigarette in my mouth. It's a subjective thing to your mindset at a time.
Yeah.
Is a favorite. I don't think you ever actually have a lifetime favorite. You have favorites.
Not until the end.
That's very true.
Not until the very end.
Yeah.
Those will be my last words. My favorite author was...
He's going to die. And I'm going to
We'll
go,
never
what
know.
was it? What? I don't care enough.
Anyway.
I'll end up pulling out all of the novels that you recommended to me and having them buried with you, just in case.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
You saw a documentary about...
Watched a documentary about Thomas Pynchon.
Nice.
And sort of who he is.
The man in records.
The stuff that he's put out and what we can sort of piece together about him, because he's a famously reclusive person.
Yeah.
We don't have any pictures of him past when he was in high school, really. He hasn't been seen in public since he published V, which is in 1963.
Wait, seriously?
Yes.
This guy's been hiding for 50 years?
Oh, yeah.
He's the second most prolific reclusive writer. Do you know who the first one is?
No.
J.D. Salinger.
Okay. My
Died in
question,
2009.
how much does this guy spend on tissue?
I know that he travels mostly at night.
Really?
Yes.
Does he wear sunglasses?
No. Anyway, so
Tell us the name of this documentary.
it is called Thomas Pynchon: A Journey Inside the Mind of P.
P. Like just the...
The letter P
Okay.
for Pynchon.
2002?
Did he
2003.
sign stuff just as P kind of thing? Or was that...
I think that was a thing they decided because his first novel was called V.
Ah.
Anyway, basically they sort of try to put together as much information as they can about Thomas Pynchon and why he's reclusive and why he writes the way he does and all that interesting stuff. There's an interesting conspiracy theory that involves Thomas Pynchon going from Texas to Mexico in September of 1963. Guess who's on that bus with him, Fifi?
I have... Wait.
1963.
No, 1963.
1963.
September.
Infamous person. Never wrote anything.
I got nothing. Stop talking.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
You're fucking kidding me.
Oh yeah. Lee Harvey Oswald was going from Texas to Mexico so he could get a visa to get into Cuba. That didn't work out.
So Grassy Knoll?
Possibly. We also know that Thomas Pynchon did a fair amount of LSD
Yeah.
in maybe in the 60s, possibly in the 70s. He might have been involved in MK Ultra.
Yeah, he could be a victim.
Along with other
Ken
favorites,
Kesey,
Ken Kesey,
Tom
Timothy
Wolfe.
Leary.
Wait, Timothy Leary?
Yeah.
Timothy Leary, Tom Wolfe.
Wait,
Ken
was
Kesey.
involved in Ultra?
Yes.
Jesus Christ, what?
Ken Kesey and Leary volunteered.
That does not surprise me, honestly.
And another famous victim, Ted Kaczynski.
That one I knew.
The Unabomber.
That one I knew.
Anyway, so they're cobbling together all of these facts that they can about Thomas Pynchon, and it's a very interesting sort of rummage around into the life of Thomas Pynchon and what exactly happened.
So is there like a so is it kind of like a traditional documentary where they have talking heads and they
Yes.
So are a lot of the talking heads people who have seen and talked to Thomas Pynchon?
Yes.
So there's a lot of first-hand sources. Primary sources.
I think one of my favorite first-hand sources was a guy who worked in New York at a bookstore. And he would get like high school kids coming in all the time saying that they had met Pynchon. They know where he lived, but they were sworn to secrecy. And one time he saw this lady come into his store who looked like she could be Pynchon's sister, but he didn't know that Pynchon had a sister, so he thinks it was him in disguise.
Pynchon in drag?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. P.
Wow.
That would be
So-
pretty cool.
Here is basically the theory as to why he is in hiding, as I have been able to
Piece together.
Yeah.
I think that Pynchon did something in the 1960s that he is incredibly paranoid about being arrested for and spending potentially quite a lot of time in jail.
Interesting. So much of
Do you think that's
Pynchon,
related to the Lee Harvey Oswald thing?
maybe, but so much of Pynchon's novels and stories are about people getting fucked with by institutions or governments or
agencies that are far beyond their control.
Yeah, like
Inherent Vice.
Inherent Vice.
Crying of Lot 49.
Even Gravity's Rainbow has the story about the scientists who are developing that missile.
Mm-hmm.
They are secret. That's a secret operation.
Top secret. Captain Jeffrey Pirate Prentice is sworn to secrecy on everything he knows.
Correct. And so it's so secretive and it's so paranoid. It's so frantic that it makes sense that maybe Pynchon's trying to tell us something. But
I only recently figured out what Gravity's Rainbow is actually about.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my god, I finally get it. It's great. I love it. I love it.
It's like the first time you had LSD and like your mind unlocked.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ruin it for anyone because if you're gonna read Gravity's Rainbow, fucking figure it out yourself.
I will.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of shit I need to read.
But
I don't think you'd even be able to like
get through it.
Yeah.
Probably not.
It's
Here's the thing.
there's
here's
like
the
a
thing.
thousand
I'm gonna give you-
characters.
Yeah. I'm going to give you both of you a pro tip. Have a dictionary handy.
Yeah, that's
Unlike I remember I was talking to someone about like postmodern literature and like the three big postmodern lit books you really just have to read.
Yeah.
If you're gonna get into postmodern lit at all, are like Ulysses, Gravity's Rainbow, and Infinite Jest.
Yeah.
So like
that's your starter kit.
tips for reading all of them. Infinite Jest, don't skip any of the footnotes. They're important, even if they don't seem like they're important. Gravity's Rainbow, keep a dictionary handy. Ulysses, keep a dictionary handy, or don't, because a lot of those words James Joyce just kind of made up.
Yeah. I would also have I have advice for the person who's going to read specifically Ulysses because it's older. James Joyce died in 1925, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So all of his works are in the public domain. And as such, a lot of people have gone to great efforts to not only create films based around his work, loosely, but also audiobooks. There is a great website called LibriVox, LibriVox, and on there are like 8 or 9 audiobooks read by either one person, a group of people to represent all of the different characters, or a group of people with environmental sounds. So it's kind of like more laid back.
It's more of an audio play than a...
Totally. And if you want to read it and you want to have a sort of like a way to fit not only the tone of the book but also marry it with the words, read the book while listening to an audiobook. That's my advice to you because I've actually gotten through a fair chunk of it that way.
My favorite story about Ulysses was the person who asked if they could kiss the hand that wrote Ulysses, and James Joyce's response was no because it did a lot of other stuff too.
I mentioned earlier, before we started recording the podcast, about when we were talking about shit we've been watching lately, the first couple episodes I watched of the John Larroquette show.
Yeah.
There is an excellent episode in which I kind of have to explain the premise.
Sure.
John Larroquette plays a guy who, up until very recently, has been an alcoholic and is getting his life back together and gets a job as the night manager at a bus station in St. Louis, Missouri. His rival is the guy who works at the snack bar. And the guy at the snack bar, they're talking, and the guy at the snack bar quotes a line from Gravity's Rainbow. And John Larroquette's character is like, where did you hear that? And the lunch counter guy is like, oh, I heard it in a book. His name's Dexter. And so Dexter's like, oh, I read it in a book. Yeah, I know, it's in Gravity's Rainbow. It's my favorite book ever by my favorite author, Thomas Pynchon. And they're like, oh, yeah. Or Dexter's like, oh, yeah, he comes through here every once in a while. I'm good friends with him. He bought me this shirt. Anyway, at the end of the episode, he has John's copy of Gravity's Rainbow that he had signed by Pynchon because he had been through just the previous night. And John's like, what? And he opens the book, and the signature is, on this page of Whitey White, I got so hungry, I took a bite. Signed from Tom with a bite out of the corner of the page.
How old is this show?
That episode was in '93.
The show sounds quite good, actually.
It's very interesting, and also super ahead of the time.
Is this like a sitcom?
Yes.
It's a sitcom making references to Pynchon. I'm pretty sure it must be ahead of its time.
Well, also, one of my favorite lines is in the first episode when Dexter is talking to the cops in St. Louis, and they're like, "Oh yeah, just stay inside, and maybe we won't accidentally shoot you the next time." It's like, what? You're gonna get to this shit in 1993? What the hell? Anyway, it's a very interesting show.
Sounds like one of the I love shit that's ahead of its time because it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest discoveries I ever made was from your recommendation and Dylan's J-Pod.
Oh yeah,
J-Pod was like a goddamn revelation. It was like sometimes when you watch a movie or listen to some music that's ahead of its time, it's what you like now, but it's just a little bit different. What this was, what J-Pod was, is like ahead of its time, but still really good. Like the shit about Board X and, you know, the discussions about office culture and business culture and having weird family and just being a guy who does a job that not everybody can understand. So interesting, and it totally at the cusp of its, you know, so totally was like released at the cusp of its great like awakening. Douglas Copeland is like one of those guys who just has an eye on what's quite interesting, and what will become topical. And you should probably spell out the name of the show actually, so that people can check the show that you were watching.
Oh, John Larroquette, Larroquette.
Is anybody of significance in it? Anybody famous?
Seriously, I think the most famous person who's come out of that, or to have been on the show, is David Crosby.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think he's only in like the first season though.
Oh yeah, so check out David Crosby's IMDb page and type that into Control F, and then yeah, that's what I do normally. So if I can't really convey where you can find something, just go on IMDb. The guy's page is there. Wow, that's pretty interesting. We've talked a lot about Paranoia on the show, just by coincidence, or is it? But I wanted to talk about actually some music that I've been listening to lately. I've been listening to the new Death Grips, which as of recording was released officially today, May 6th, 2016. This won't take that long to get out there. I'm pretty sure it'll be out pretty soon. So I don't know why I said the year. Anyway, the album is Death Grips' like 6th album? I can't remember. But it's really good. It's their second shortest album. It's called Bottomless Pit. And they've released a music video for it. And one of the songs on it debuted on Beats One Radio, actually, quite recently. I think actually just on Thursday. It's very straight. It's one of the more interestingly marketed Death Grips albums. It's not like there's no ARG or anything, but there is like marketing. Like they have a vinyl pre-order up now, and they have their single debut on Apple Radio basically, or Beats One Radio. I can't remember. I think that's what Apple Radio is called. And yeah, I like it. I dig it a lot. There's really good songs on it. It's Death Grips by numbers essentially, but of course Death Grips by numbers is still, you know, the most insane trip of, you know, decadence and hedonism that you've ever seen in your life. So yeah, 8 out of 10, pretty good. I really like one of the few things that came out before the album was leaked last week. Was a few months ago they released the front and back cover of the album, and on the back it has the words "very shallow listening" on it, right above the track list. And I think Death Grips are one of those bands that has a real self-awareness. You know, does Metallica really care what people are saying on social media? Probably not. But Death Grips have an ear to the things that the fans, to the memes that, or to the, you know, sort of culture that the fans have created for themselves. You know, like Jenny Death When became a thing that they would be, that people would be screaming in message boards and comment sections and on Twitter, of course. But and then they released Fashion Week, which
where the tracks are spell out Jenny Death When.
Yeah, it's like Runaway J, Runaway E, Runaway N, and so on and so forth. And it's just one of those things where you're like, a band so confident in the art that they're able to produce that they don't really care about all the jokes that their fans make about them, the jokes that are ironic, of course. They just sort of exist as I think they're the most successful performance art band ever. Because Zappa made music.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Captain Beefheart made music at the end of the day. And those guys sold records, but they weren't this kind of like, you know, if Death Grips is a performance art, this is probably one of the more successful
Like outside of Devo.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'd say like this is one of the bands that like really pushes the envelope between what you know about the band and what you think you know about the band. And of course, so much paranoia exists around Death Grips. Like, they send out a tweet, or they post a video, or someone's Twitter it starts being followed by the band's Twitter. The band delete their Twitter, and then this random Twitter shows up that has numbers and dates attached to it that coincide with album releases. So, you know, it's really hard to see where the line is drawn between anti-marketing and just straight-up marketing. I think Death Grips are really one of the bands that are putting together one of the strongest fan bases. I think they'll always have a strong fan base.
Definitely.
And they'll just continue making music, and they've made consistently good music their entire career. I think the only album that I really would the album that I would rate the lowest is still better than the average Kesha album.
Wow.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. She only has one album.
She's 2.
Oh well,
And an EP.
I'm sorry. Is that like what, one album every 3 years?
Well, the thing is she only really managed to produce 2 and get the EP out as well before basically the whole legal issue took off, and she refused to make music while she was working in the courts to get released from her contract.
Right.
Because she didn't want to make music with a company that was fucking her over, and the guy who was being accused of, you know.
Yeah.
So,
that makes sense.
So she did what she could, and then basically got to the point where she couldn't stand any more press charges and stopped making music, so she could deal with her.
Death Grips, way more consistent than Kanye West.
Fuck yeah.
You know, the guy releases like an album every 3 years, and it's like, dude, why, bro?
Why are you still making music?
I don't know. I
I'm
think
not a fan of West. Like,
he has a lot to give, and he has so much great art behind him that he'll always be sort of a person who, yeah, you know, he made Graduation. He made
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
808s and Heartbreak.
808s and Heartbreak. The College Dropout. Late Registration. You know, he'll always be the guy who made those albums, but he'll also be the guy who really should not have been let on Twitter.
A guy who is very brash and abrasive and...
Wishes he were as punk rock as Death Grips were.
You think so?
In a way that, like, he sort of cuts through the mold. He wants to be a person who is an auteur and really wants to do it himself. But he's a commercial entity. Mm-hmm. So he can only express himself through high fashion. And I think that's sort of something that Kanye West will always have to deal with, that he is too successful to really be above all of the other corporate people. He'll say things like, you know, I'm better than this company or this company, or I have great ideas, or I'm an artist. Mm-hmm. But he'll also always be tied to commercial brands. He'll always be tied to the mainstream. And Death Grips, you ain't gonna see a commercial with Death Grips in it. Like what would you even be advertising? I'll bet you could fit like a Death Grips song into a car commercial. They'll do anything with car commercials. I've seen car commercials that are basically avant-garde films.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like car, child being born. Car, Coca-Cola. Car on fire. Car being born. Car, Coca-Cola. You know, it's like, it's one of those things where art, you can't be really cutting edge when you're selling out Madison Square Garden. Although I think Death Grips totally would. But it's not, you know, not everyone's, like, if you robbed that room, you'd be richer than Bill Gates, basically, because there's just so many people hanging around in all this expensive clothing, you know? I don't know. It's weird. It's weird to think about. But yeah,
it's weird to think of musical entities as something other than just like somebody creating music.
As like a person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I like... There's certain people that we like specifically as a musical entity in that they're creating stuff that we enjoy listening to, or even I actually sometimes enjoy people that I don't enjoy listening to their stuff, just because we all need someone to rip on. But there's also a few that
Brandon Flowers.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't go either way or that, but on that issue. But I'll leave you guys to bitch about it later.
I think the only thing I'm gonna say about Brendan Flowers is that "Don't Shoot Me, Santa" is a pretty awesome Christmas song.
That's
I think it's probably taken over from "Fairy Tale of New York" as like top.
Really?
Yeah. Because I've just heard
but-
"Fairy Tale of New York" so much that it's become kind of overrated.
Blasé, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
So are we gonna have to do that game around Christmas time to see who can avoid it the longest?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. But the thing is that there's also a few people that we have to notice outside of their musical careers.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's been Kesha and Nicki Minaj, again, who I mentioned before. Don't care for her music, like her as a person.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a few others, obviously, that I pay attention to, but
Everybody's relatable on some level.
yeah, to some degree. My favorite.
Was it not
thing
Mark Twain who also said though that it is a great shame that so often great men have poor relations?
Yeah.
Relations, yeah, but we're all related essentially.
6
I think it's bad company. You really gotta watch out for who you associate with.
Yeah.
Because yes, Nikki's a good person, but I think Mark Twain's quote is more towards people who are good musicians but bad people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like who's a bad person?
Chris Brown.
Chris Brown is a bad person.
Bad
Fucking
person. Terrible person.
Yeah, you can go
And
to hell.
although, admittedly, I don't want to say he was even a good musician. Like he was.
He
No,
can sing.
but
That's
he
about.
but he sells.
Yeah.
He was, yeah. Okay. Here's the thing.
He's
he was,
still on songs. He's on Kanye West's new album.
Yeah, he's a popular musician. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say he's good, but he did get a lot of attraction in that. But absolute piece of shit in his personal life.
Yeah,
Right? As
yeah.
we all know.
Hunk of garbage, And I think that
A bunch of other musicians are absolute fuckwits.
Billy Corgan,
Yeah. Pete could probably name a bunch off the list, top of his head.
Dave Mustaine.
Think rock.
Half the Ramones.
Most of the Beatles.
Dee Dee and
Joey.
I almost said Joey. I was like
I said Joey because I am apparently
Dee Dee and Johnny, the ones who are the bad ones.
the fact that Dee Dee was a Republican really gets me. Like
the Johnny was too.
no, but like Dee Dee specifically
Yeah.
as fucking 53rd and 3rd and Republican. Those two things
Don't.
in my mind just no.
You ever meet a Republican sex worker?
No.
Yeah, no.
The Beatles were all horrible people.
I would
Well, like not okay. There weren't like.
I would
black-hearted
argue for
scoundrels.
true, but
But
I
they
would
weren't
I would
great.
argue for like
Paul.
Paul was probably the best of the group. People have argued. The story that I heard was basically the story that happened with Ringo's wife.
Oh
Which
yeah,
is,
yeah.
You know, Ringo was the one who took the fame a little too hard and started partying quite a bit.
Mm.
And then, of course, his wife basically ended up leaving him because he turned into kind of an asshole.
Mm.
And then, like, I think the only person in the group who basically was, like, actually sympathetic towards her was Paul. Because Lennon didn't give a shit.
fucking motorcycle.
George didn't give a shit. And Ringo was the problem in the beginning. Paul was the only one who showed her any sympathy. So,
Yeah. Rock has a real...
Bad influence on people.
There are sometimes people who look bad in rock music. Like they just... You can imagine them as being people who you'd never want to associate with. But who are actually nice people.
Ozzy
like Josh
Osbourne.
Homme.
Ozzy.
Oh yeah, Josh Homme.
He looks like he's mad all the time.
Mhm.
But he also is really fucking funny.
Oh yeah, so funny.
He's
like
so
one of the-
funny. He's got such a dry humor. in
yeah.
him. That desert humor inside him.
And especially considering like his wife calls him Baby Duck.
yeah.
What?
His wife, Brody
Who's-
Dow from
Yeah.
the Distillers, calls him I think King Baby Duck like all the time.
So funny. I think, but you can't always. You will have to at some point make the decision between really taking into consideration someone's personal life and their music. But that's argument's been going on forever.
I think it is kind of a struggle sometimes to make a good disconnect there, right? Like you have to. One of my favorite people though out there, because I've listened to both his music. I've experienced pretty much everything he puts out. Is Donald Glover, right? Because he's an actor, comedian, and a music producer. I think
he's a rapper.
Because the internet, yeah.
It makes
because
some,
the internet was
records.
a great album. Well, I loved it. I haven't listened to too much of his other stuff, although I've found some of his YouTube.
Have you
clips
read
where
Have
he
you
does
read the script?
No.
For Because the Internet?
No.
That's an interesting read.
I will get to that at some point. But yeah, I've listened to Because of the Internet. I've listened to a few of the free verse stuff that he does on YouTube. You can find, which is good. But I've also watched his stand-up comedy, and I've watched his acting to some degree. His stand-up comedy is probably where you get the best view of his personality.
Oh yeah, I think that's
Weirdo
probably more of where he lays himself bare than anywhere else.
Yeah, Weirdo is great.
Oh yeah.
I'd say the degrees of separation between his true self and a character is bridged between his stand-up. It's his stand-up is his most sincere form of him.
Yeah,
I would say.
Here's the thing is, honestly, a lot of the time that happens with stand-up comedians, you learn a lot about a person and what they can do in a 2-hour special off of Comedy Central, right? Although you also learn a lot of what they actually aren't, because George Carlin was a very nice guy.
Yeah.
He actually kind of, towards the end, if you watch here's the thing, on stage, he got worse and worse over the years. He got even more bitter. Watch some of the interviews, though, when he was old.
Yeah.
He's a really nice dude.
Oh yeah,
he's a friendly neighborhood grandfather.
When
he
you
swears like a trucker.
Hearing about him from guys like Kevin Smith, and Jon Stewart, and all the people who would hang out with him in those days, because here's George Carlin, the guy who made what you're doing possible.
Yeah,
it just sort of.
Yeah,
he just sort of takes on that grandfatherly figure,
My point was that these are all better points than what I was going to say, but stand-up is probably where you get the real person. Music is where you get your most idealized person.
It's when you try to craft an image of yourself.
And the bridge is definitely his acting.
Yeah.
Because his character on Community specifically is one that interests me. Because I can imagine his character on Community both releasing Because of the Internet and Camp, the 2 albums that I've heard of his.
Yeah.
And performing stand-up.
Yeah, but the thing is my favorite point that he ever does is when he first gets up on Weirdo and he tells the story of how he got his special, because he did a half-hour special, and they were like, great, we want you to do an hour special, but don't do any of the stuff you just did there. Because a whole bunch of people show up to his shows thinking, oh, it's going to be great, he's going to do Troy and Abed, and he's just like, dicks, 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 dicks. And they're like, oh, let's go. Because they bring their kids to these shows thinking it's going to be family-friendly. But he's not. But he's also, he's...
charming.
He's very charming. Here's the thing. There's a few things that he does that I'm not hugely a fan of. He makes a couple jokes that are a little off color, but that's just me being fairly PC.
It's whatever. It's what every good comedian does.
It's comedy, so to some degree we excuse a level of political correctness on stage because we know that it is not being done.
Bo Burnham is a master of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Bo Burnham actually makes a comment in one of his songs where he talks about 21st century racism because it's racism in light of itself. And then he goes, if after the show you see if you see somebody who is of a visible minority beating the shit out of me, they're doing it ironically. But Bo Burnham's great. But that's another thing with stand-up comedy. If we're starting to move in that direction, is it's becoming extremely self-aware.
Yeah.
To the degree that we realize what we're joking about and how dark we can get with it. And then of course we still have a couple people who are really fucking bad. I still wish that Frankie Boyle was active, because now he's not. He doesn't do tours anymore or anything like that. He spends most of his time writing articles. He's in
The Guardian?
Yeah, he writes a ton for the Guardian.
Of course he'd write for the Guardian.
Who's he gonna write for? The Sun? Frankie Boyle writes for The Sun. The Sun implodes on itself. Murdoch wouldn't cut him a check for anything. He wouldn't cut him a check to make him leave.
For The Sun. The next week, The Sun goes bankrupt.
Oh, it'd be great. It'd be a great moment.
He'd write Spider Jerusalem's.
I hate it here.
No, the fuck article.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Stand-up comedy, pretty fun. Pretty fun times.
It's
actually, I suppose he still does stand up occasionally, but that's when he does like
events. The gala.
When he's inspired by a specific event, he'll do something. I think my favorite was when he did the Scottish referendum, and they're like, "How much does BBC care? I'm doing a show about it on the internet."
Nice.
Yeah, my favorite thing was he did the referendum, like after results thing, and he brought in like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
He brought in a 5-year-old.
He did it again for the election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where he brings in like a 5-year-old kid and basically asks them what they think of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's also really funny because like that's when you start to see that disconnect between his stage character and him, because you see Frankie Boyle interacting with children.
My favorite story about him interacting with children, though, comes out of his book My Shit Life So Far. I still can't find it for the life of me. Where he tells a story about when he was a substitute teacher for a Catholic school. And there was this one boy who was Mormon, I think, or like Jehovah's Witness. And basically this kid going to a Catholic school who was not Catholic. And so they would do Mass, but that kid wasn't going for obvious reasons. So one day they decided to get a cricket ball and a cricket bat and go outside and hit the ball around a bit. And one of them hits it, and it flies out into they don't know where. And then they hear glass breaking. And then they give each other that look of, nobody needs to know about this, and just walk away.
Yeah, and they just take off.
That's sort of one of those moments where I'm like, yeah, I think everyone's experienced that.
Yeah, that's a really special. It's really one of the few times I do have connections with like children, like on like an emotional level. Is when we're both like, so, you like Spider-Man, and that's it. And that's
Pete,
wow.
Contain yourself.
I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Before he webs something.
Oh my god. He webs his pants.
Yeah.
It's really encouraging when you find kids who are like into stuff that you are. And it's really the great dawn. That's the thing about the dawn of this new generation, especially the people who are young now, like under 10, is that they're all going to grow up with superheroes being put on the plateau.
I'm scared of the next generation because I've already seen YouTube comments of songs that we grew up with, of kids being like, "Oh my god, I should have been born in the early 2000s."
Oh.
I've already seen them. It scares me.
Oh.
Yeah, we're turning into the new 90s. It's freaking me out.
The 2000s are not the new 90s. The 2000s are...
But we're already getting those bunch of... I'm waiting for the resurgence of fucking scene kids.
The awkwardness of the 2000s really reminds... The awkwardness of the 2000s is more like the post-war age. Because everyone was just trying to figure out who the fuck they were. It's like, are we the 90s or are we future? You'll ever look at like early 2000s music videos? It's everywhere.
Oh yeah.
They're trying to figure out. They're trying to find out the connection. The connection between the tracksuit and the frosted tips. They're trying really hard to make it. Yeah, totally.
And also sort of like coming to terms with the fact that by the year 2000, we were not anywhere near as technologically advanced as we were predicted to be.
Oh yeah.
I'm still waiting on my floating cars.
Man, fuck the floating cars.
I'd rather not. That's not a thing I'm into.
You can put your robots in a floating car and drive it off a bridge. Probably wouldn't crash though.
I like the idea of John like finding a floating car and sticking a brick under the accelerator towards like an unfinished bridge, and then it just crosses the gap. And he's sitting there incredibly disappointed that nothing happened.
So we've crossed the hour mark. Are we gonna?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good time to wrap it up. So we talked about Paranoia, Thomas Pynchon, Death Grips, stand-up comedy, and the paranoia of identity crisis, and who are we really?
And robots, and I think that's a good time to ask Jules to punch us out. Hey, Jules! Punch us out, will you? Thanks. For everyone here at the Midnight Shift, I'm Pete Moon.
I'm Joe.
I'm Fianna Shepherd.
Good night!
The Midnight Shift was produced by Fianna Shepherd. Editing by John Hill. Music by Rocket Max. Visit rocketmax.bandcamp.com for more. Search the Paradigm Network on Twitter for updates on future shows. Thanks for listening.
That was good. That was really good.
Paychecks are ready for pickup.
Ooh. Mine just says Jules on it.
Oh, yeah, no, he's the only one getting paid. Give me that back.
What?
God damn it.
I told you he's expensive.
Should we get the older guy to cut the intros again?
Maybe. Where was that nice lady that was on the last episode?
Last I heard, she's on maternity leave.
This is why we need the artificial uterus.
Yeah.
No mat leave. Oh my god.
Yeah.
You know what? I think
wage gap solved. Man, this episode is going longer than we thought. Overtime with the midnight shift.
Okay, seriously, Jules, punch them up before I actually have to pay them.
Nice.